Imagine watching helplessly as a dozen bikers surround your work van, the vehicle that holds not just your livelihood, but the specialized equipment that helps keep an entire community's homes safe and warm. That's exactly what David Mitchell faced on a rain-soaked Friday evening in the quiet suburb of Pine Valley, Colorado. But these bikers made one critical mistake. They chose to target a van belonging to a man who spent 12 years maintaining vital life support systems at 35,000 feet. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn wind whips through Pine Valley's tree-lined streets, scattering golden leaves across David's perfectly organized workspace. His weathered hands move with practiced efficiency as he arranges specialized tools in his custom-modified 2018 Ford Transit van. Each wrench, each diagnostic device, each piece of equipment finds its designated place, a habit forged through years of military precision, where proper tool placement could mean the difference between life and death at high altitude. Emily Chen, his apprentice plumber, pulls into the parking lot of Mitchell's Premium Plumbing Solutions in her modest Toyota Corolla. The earnest 23-year-old hurries toward the van, her tool belt already secured around her waist. "Morning, Mr. Mitchell. Got those pipe pressure calculations done like you showed me yesterday?" David examines her work, noting the precise measurements and attention to detail. The kid's getting better every day, showing the same dedication he once saw in young airmen. The thunderous roar of motorcycles drowns out his words of praise. A convoy of leather-clad riders from the Desert Scorpions tears past the shop, their modified exhausts deliberately excessive. At their head rides Max the Wrecker Thompson, his matte black Harley-Davidson gleaming despite the overcast sky. He slows deliberately, studying David's van with calculated interest. Lisa Mitchell emerges from the office, her hospital administrator's blazer exchanged for work clothes. She catches David's eye, sharing a knowing look they've perfected through years of marriage. They've seen intimidation before in different forms, different places, when she served as a flight nurse while he maintained the aircraft that carried wounded warriors home. "They're getting bolder," Lisa says quietly, keeping her voice low. "The Henderson family paid them protection money yesterday just to keep their restaurant open." David continues working, his movements never breaking rhythm. A complex repair job for the local senior living facility demands his attention. Modifications to their water heating system that could prevent thousands in damage and ensure the safety of its elderly residents. Max circles back alone, cutting his engine outside the shop. His boots crunch on loose gravel as he approaches, cobra tattoos snaking up his neck. "Nice operation you got here, Mitchell." "Real nice. Shame if anything happened to it." David looks up from his work, measuring the man before him. Max's leather cut is pristine, his boots barely scuffed, a man playing at being dangerous. "Town's changing, friend. Small businesses like yours need protection these days. We provide that service, for a reasonable fee." Max's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "My protection comes from 20 years of honest work and a community that knows my name," David replies, his voice steady, carrying the calm authority of someone who's handled far worse crises at 35,000 feet. "And I'm not your friend." Max's face hardens. He pulls out his phone, scrolls through something. "Funny thing about plumbing vans. They can be pretty fragile. All that specialized equipment, those custom organizing systems you got. One bad day could cost you everything." David sets down his pressure gauge, stands to his full height. Even after years of civilian life, his military bearing shows through. "That sounded like a threat." "Just sharing some friendly business advice," Max sneers. "We'll be back tonight for your answer. Think carefully about your choices, Mitchell. You're not up in the clouds anymore. You're down here in our territory now." As Max roars away, Emily approaches David, worry clear on her young face. "What are we going to do, Mr. Mitchell?" David returns to his work, making a precise adjustment to his diagnostic equipment. "We're going to finish Mrs. Robinson's water heater installation. Then we're going to check the shop's security cameras." He pauses, testing the pressure on a connection. "And then we're going to give them a lesson in fluid dynamics they'll never forget." Lisa watches the exchange from the office doorway, her hand instinctively touching the Air Force wings pinned to her collar. Throughout the day, more Desert Scorpions ride past, each time slower, each time more deliberate. David notes their bike's modifications, his trained eye catching critical flaws in their custom work. Amateur adjustments, improper pressure ratios, dangerous shortcuts that would never have passed his rigorous pre-flight inspections. As evening approaches, storm clouds gather over Pine Valley, casting long shadows across David Mitchell's workshop. Emily left hours ago despite insisting on staying, but Lisa remains in the office, monitoring the security feeds while pretending to update customer records. Through the high-resolution cameras, she watches the Desert Scorpions make their 7th pass of the day, their intentions clear in every aggressive rev of their engines. What the bikers don't see, what their arrogance blinds them to, is the true nature of the man they're threatening. Behind those steady hands and quiet demeanor lies expertise forged in the most demanding conditions imaginable. David Mitchell isn't just a small-town plumber, he's a former technical sergeant with the U.S. Air Force's Elite Aircraft Environmental Systems Division, specializing in the complex web of pressurization, temperature control, and hydraulic systems that keep military aircraft functioning in the world's most hostile environments. His custom-modified Ford Transit isn't just any work van. It's a masterpiece of military-grade organization and specialized equipment, systems perfected through years of ensuring aircraft safety at altitudes where a single mistake means disaster. Every tool, every gauge, every piece of equipment serves multiple purposes. Knowledge that saved lives in combat zones across 3 continents. The Desert Scorpions thought they were sending a message. Instead, they've triggered a chain of events that will shake their motorcycle club to its core. When Max the Wrecker Thompson realizes his entire gang's safety hangs by a thread due to their own ignorance of basic fluid dynamics and pressure systems, he'll face a choice that will change everything. David moves through his workshop with measured precision, checking specialized pressure gauges and flow meters. The wall behind him displays his military commendations, Air Force Achievement Medals, Combat Readiness Medals, and most prominently, his Master Aircraft Environmental Systems certification, expertise that kept F-22 Raptors flying through sandstorms and C-17 medical evacuation flights pressurized at critical moments. Security systems picking up movement on Baker Street, Lisa calls from the office, her voice carrying the same calm it held during turbulent medical flights. Looks like they're gathering at the old gas station. David nods, continuing his preparations. In the Air Force, he learned that proper preparation prevents poor performance, a mantra that saved lives at 35,000 feet and would now protect his community at ground level. Emily's Toyota appears at the end of the street, the young apprentice ignoring his direct order to stay away. She parks behind the shop, using the back entrance they normally reserve for emergency calls. "I thought I told you to go home," David says, though there's no real anger in his voice. In her determination, he sees echoes of young airmen who wouldn't abandon their posts during critical missions. "With respect, Mr. Mitchell, you also told me that a true professional never abandons their equipment or their team," Emily responds, already moving to help secure vital tools. Her fingers trace the specialized fittings he'd taught her to maintain, understanding growing in her eyes as she recognizes military-grade connections adapted for civilian use. "These aren't standard plumbing parts, are they?" David allows himself a small smile. "Standard parts fail under extreme pressure. In the Air Force, we learned to modify systems to handle conditions way beyond normal tolerances. Every fitting, every valve, every connection in this van is rated for conditions that would shatter conventional equipment." He picks up a seemingly ordinary pipe fitting, holds it in the workshop's light. "This little piece? Similar design kept cabin pressure stable in aircraft flying wounded soldiers home. Pressure's pressure, whether it's at 35,000 feet or in a Colorado basement." Lisa's voice cuts through their discussion. "David, they're moving, at least 15 bikes, all heading this way." She pulls up multiple camera feeds, showing leather-clad figures mounting motorcycles. Max is leading them personally this time. "Good," David responds, his voice carrying the calm of someone who's handled emergency decompressions at altitude. "Time to show them why you don't threaten someone who understands the real meaning of pressure." He turns to Emily, sees the mixture of fear and determination in her young face. "Remember what I taught you about water hammer effect?" Emily nods quickly. "Sudden valve closure creating pressure waves that can rupture pipes. You said it's why we always ensure proper pressure regulation and emergency release systems." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Exactly. But what they don't teach you in regular plumbing courses is how those same principles apply to any fluid system, including motorcycle brake lines and fuel delivery systems. David moves to his van, begins activating systems that look nothing like standard plumbing equipment. In aircraft maintenance, we learned that understanding pressure dynamics means understanding how to control them. Sometimes that means knowing exactly how to make systems fail safely. Through the growing storm, the rumble of approaching motorcycles grows louder. Lisa checks the security feeds one final time, then moves to stand beside her husband. On her collar, her flight nurse wings catch the workshop's light, matching the Aircraft Environmental Systems badge David keeps mounted above his workbench. Together, they've saved lives in the most demanding conditions imaginable. Tonight, they'll save their community through that same expertise. "They're here," Emily whispers, as the first bikes appear at the street's entrance. In the growing darkness, their headlights cut through the rain like searchlights, but David sees something else. Critical vulnerabilities in their custom modifications, flaws that would never have passed his rigorous aircraft safety inspections. "Remember," David says quietly, checking one final gauge, "in the Air Force, we learned that the most dangerous thing isn't the enemy you can see. It's the forces you don't understand." Through the rain, Max Thompson's motorcycle leads the pack, its chrome gleaming with menace. But David Mitchell stands calm, years of handling life-or-death systems at altitude having taught him that true power doesn't come from intimidation. It comes from understanding exactly how things work, and exactly how they can fail. The storm intensifies as the desert scorpions surround Mitchell's premium plumbing solutions, their bikes forming an intimidating circle around David's van. The rain beats a steady rhythm against the workshop's metal roof, each drop a countdown to confrontation. Max kills his engine, the sudden silence more threatening than the thunder overhead. David stands in his workshop doorway, rain soaking his work clothes, his stance carrying the same calm confidence that once guided aircraft through raging storms. Behind him, the wall displays his Air Force certifications, unit photos, and medals, silent testament to expertise earned at altitudes where mistakes mean disaster. "Time's up, Mitchell." Max's voice carries over the storm, his skull-painted helmet gleaming in the security lights. "What's your answer?" The other bikers rev their engines in unison, a choreographed show of force that echoes off the surrounding buildings. David steps forward into the rain, his movements measured and precise. "My answer is the same as it would have been at 35,000 feet, he replies, voice steady despite the thunderous backdrop. "We don't negotiate with people who threaten safety systems." The skull helmet tilts slightly. "Wrong answer." The sound of shattering glass pierces the night as the first rock smashes through the van's windshield. David doesn't flinch, his military training taking over as he catalogs every action, every face, every potential weakness in their formation. The bikers move with practiced coordination, but their overconfidence shows in sloppy positioning. Max circles the van, aluminum baseball bat dragging along its custom panels. Each scratch reveals the specialized coating beneath, military-grade protection that once kept aircraft components safe from desert storms, now guarding against simple vandalism. "Last chance to reconsider, Mitchell," Max calls out, his voice competing with the intensifying rain. "Save your precious van." Lisa's voice crackles through David's earpiece, calm and measured like during their shared flights. Security feeds recording everything. Deputy Wilson's been notified. David watches as Rico the Wrench Martinez, Max's right-hand man, approaches the van's modified equipment compartment. The man's movements betray his background, former mechanic, probably military himself judging by his stance. He hesitates at the specialized storage systems, recognizing components that shouldn't be in a civilian vehicle. "Boss, you might want to take a look at this," Rico calls out, his voice carrying a note of uncertainty. Lightning illuminates the workshop's interior, highlighting the wall of credentials behind David: aircraft environmental system certifications, advanced hydraulic system qualifications, military commendations. A lifetime of expertise on display. One of the younger Scorpions notices, elbowing his companion and pointing. The rain intensifies, streaming off leather jackets and chrome pipes. David remains still, calculating angles and pressures, his mind running through scenarios like pre-flight checklists. "You know what your problem is, Max?" David's voice cuts through the storm. "You think destruction takes strength, but any fool can break things. The real power is in understanding how systems work." Max swings the bat, connecting with the van's side mirror. The reinforced mount absorbs the impact, sending unexpected vibrations up Max's arm. He stumbles, cursing. "Pressure systems are about understanding forces," David continues, taking a step forward. "Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Basic physics. Right now, you're all force without understanding." Two Scorpions move to flank him, but David's positioning is deliberate. The workshop security lights create blind spots he knows intimately, advantages in terrain, just like in combat zones. Rico's voice rises again, urgent now. "Max, these modifications. This ain't regular plumbing work. This is military-grade systems engineering. Look at these pressure gauges, these hydraulic fittings. I've only seen stuff like this in aircraft." "Shut up and trash it," Max snaps, but there's new uncertainty in his voice. David moves with sudden purpose, reaching the van's cab in 3 measured steps. His hand finds the custom panel he installed last summer, fingers dancing across concealed switches. The van's exterior lights activate in sequence. Not standard halogens, but military-grade illumination arrays salvaged from aircraft maintenance bays. The sudden, overwhelming brightness sends the Scorpions staggering back, night vision shattered in the stark light. In the harsh illumination, David sees what he's been looking for: hairline stress fractures and critical brake line connections on 3 of their bikes, including Max's. "Your front brake line's about to fail," David states flatly, pointing to Max's motorcycle. "Custom extended pressure system, poorly reinforced. Maybe 50 miles left before catastrophic failure at highway speeds. Isn't that right, Rico?" Rico's face tells the story. He's recognized the same flaw. His military background would have trained him to spot it, even if his civilian certification didn't cover such modifications. "You're bluffing," Max snarls, but his hand unconsciously moves toward his bike's brake line. Lisa's voice returns in David's earpiece. "Deputy Wilson's 3 minutes out. Keep them talking." David walks to Max's bike, his movements measured and confident despite the rain and hostile gang surrounding him. He kneels, pointing to specific connections. Improper pressure regulation here and here. Metal fatigue showing along these seams. Previous mechanic used incorrect fittings. One good panic stop at speed. He lets the implication hang. More Scorpions crowd around now, their own concerns about their bikes overriding their intimidation mission. David recognizes the shift in their body language from predatory to uncertain. "I've seen this kind of failure before," David continues. "Travis Air Force Base, emergency landing after hydraulic failure. Lost 3 good men because somebody used the wrong pressure fittings." The memory hangs heavy in the rain, even the least technical among them sensing its weight. "I could fix it," he says finally. "All of them. Show you how to do it right. But we do this my way. No protection money, no threats. You want to learn, you learn properly." Rico steps forward, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "He's right, Max, these bikes ain't safe. And if he's who I think he is..." He gestures to the credentials visible through the workshop window. The sound of approaching sirens cuts through the rain. Deputy Wilson's patrol car will crest the hill any moment. Max looks at his bike, then at his gang, then at David. The bat hangs loose in his hand now, its purpose forgotten. "How long?" he asks finally. 2 weeks to fix them all properly." David stands, rain streaming down his face. But that's not the real question. Max's gang shifts nervously, but their leader remains focused on David. "What is?" "The question is how long to teach you to do it right yourselves, to understand what you're actually modifying when you work on these bikes." The first flash of red and blue lights appears in the distance. Max's gang shifts uneasily, but their leader remains locked in eye contact with David. Someone has to make a decision, and David knows from his years in aircraft maintenance that leadership means recognizing when to change course. The bat clatters to the ground as Deputy Wilson's cruiser turns into the lot, headlights cutting through the rain. Deputy Wilson's flashlight beam cuts through the rain, sweeping across the scene. 15 bikers, a damaged van, and David standing calmly at the center of it all. The Desert Scorpions shift uneasily, their earlier bravado dampened by both the revelation about their bikes and the arrival of law enforcement. "Everything all right here, David?" Deputy Wilson keeps her hand near her holster, evaluating the situation with practiced eyes. Her flashlight beam lingers significantly on Max's fallen bat, then moves methodically across the visible stress fractures David had pointed out on the motorcycles. David wipes rain from his face, his stance relaxed but alert. "Just having a discussion about hydraulic systems, Sarah. These gentlemen are interested in some professional development." He gestures toward the visible damage on his van. "Though we got off to a rough start." Wilson's eyebrow rises slightly as she takes in the scene. "Professional development," she repeats slowly, her tone making it clear she understands the deeper situation. The beam of her flashlight settles on Max's face, temporarily unmasked in the rain. Interesting choice of teaching environment. Max steps forward, hands visible, his gang watching intently. This moment will define their future. "The van damage will pay for it," he says, glancing at David. "And we'd like to learn. For real." His admission carries the weight of someone who's just realized how close they've come to disaster. The deputy's flashlight beam shifts to Rico. The Henderson family filed a complaint about protection money demands yesterday. Her tone carries no accusation, just stated fact. "That stops too," Max says firmly, surprising some of his own men. "All of it. He looks at his compromised brake line, visibly reconsidering. "Exploring new business opportunities." David moves to his van, examining the damage methodically. His trained eye catalogs each point of impact, mentally calculating repairs. The reinforced panels had absorbed most of the baseball bat's force, but the windshield would need replacing. The real concern is the potential damage to his specialized equipment inside, pressure gauges and flow meters that require precise calibration. 3 conditions, David announces, his voice carrying the authority of someone who once commanded aircraft maintenance crews. "First, you make this right, not just my van, but with every business you've pressured. Second, you commit to learning properly, no shortcuts, no half measures." He pauses, making eye contact with each biker. "Third," his voice takes on the same tone he used when teaching young airmen about life-critical systems, "you use what you learn to help this community." Rico steps forward, nodding like a man who recognizes the opportunity being offered. Like a legitimate motorcycle maintenance service, mobile repair unit, his military background shows in how quickly he grasps the potential. "More than that," David replies, moving to his workbench and retrieving a folder Lisa has prepared. "This town has needs: emergency plumbing repairs, HVAC systems, pressure system maintenance. There's honest work here for people who understand how to handle critical systems properly." Deputy Wilson watches the exchange with cautious optimism. She's known David since he moved to Pine Valley, seen how his workshop has become essential to the community's infrastructure. The rain begins to ease as Max walks to his bike, running his hand along the compromised brake line. "Show them," he says quietly to Rico. Rico reaches into his jacket, producing a folded paper that he hands to David, a discharge certificate from the Navy's Aviation Maintenance Administration. "Did 6 years, Rico explains. "Always wanted to open a legitimate shop but got caught up in—" He gestures vaguely at his club colors. Lisa emerges from the office carrying a stack of documents, still perfectly dry despite the rain. Business license applications, certification requirements, training schedules. She's prepared for this possibility while they were all posturing in the storm. One by one, the Desert Scorpions gather around, their initial hostility replaced by genuine interest as David points out key details. "Basic system certification takes 6 weeks," he explains. Advanced qualifications another 3 months. But by the end of the first week, you'll understand exactly why these bikes are disasters waiting to happen. He picks up a pressure gauge, holds it in the workshop's light. This isn't just about motorcycles, it's about understanding how things work, how they can fail, and how to prevent disasters before they happen. Deputy Wilson holsters her flashlight, recognizing the shift in the atmosphere. I'll need statements about the van damage, insurance purposes. We'll handle it privately, David interjects. 20 years in the Air Force taught him that sometimes rehabilitation matters more than punishment. Wilson studies him for a moment, then nods. She understands. It's why she became a cop in the first place, to help her community more than punish it. As Wilson's patrol car pulls away, David begins a proper inspection of Max's bike. His hands move with practiced efficiency, identifying each flaw, each potential failure point. The other Scorpions watch intently, their own concerns about their bikes overwhelming any remaining antagonism. Start time tomorrow? Max asks, his earlier bravado replaced by something approaching respect. 0600, David replies, military precision automatic. Bring your bikes, basic tools, and something to take notes with. Tomorrow's lesson is fluid dynamics basics. You need to understand the science before you start modifying pressure systems. Some of the younger Scorpions groan at the mention of science, but Rico silences them with a look. He recognizes the importance of fundamentals from his Navy days. Lisa begins photographing the van damage for insurance documentation, each flash illuminating the scene. Former enemies gathered around a workbench, planning a future none of them had imagined hours ago. The pre-dawn air carries a metallic chill as David arranges various pipe fittings and pressure gauges on the workshop's main table. Each component tells a story. High-grade PEX tubing, specialized valves, pressure regulators, tools of transformation laid out with military precision. 5:45 a.m. Lisa sets up the coffee station, knowing from experience that early morning lessons require caffeine. Emily arranges chairs salvaged from the community center, creating a makeshift classroom in the workshop's heart. She's been here since 5:30, unable to contain her excitement about this unusual turn of events. 6 a.m. sharp, the rumble of motorcycles announces the arrival of the Desert Scorpions. Max leads the pack, his bike's compromised brake line creaking ominously. Behind him, 14 others file in, their expressions ranging from skeptical to curious. Rico immediately notices the professional setup, the organized workstation, the prepared materials, the projection screen showing hydraulic system diagrams. First lesson, David announces without preamble, lifting a section of copper pipe. Starts with understanding what you've been working with blindly. This isn't just metal and fluid, it's physics and engineering combined. A younger Scorpion, barely 20, snickers in the back. We came to learn about bikes, not attend science class. David's response is measured, practiced. He places the copper pipe in a vise, applies specific pressure with a specialized tool. The metal groans, then bursts with surprising ease. That was Schedule 40 copper pipe under standard pressure, similar grade to what's in your brake lines. His eyes find the young Scorpion. Still think the science isn't important? The demonstration silences the room. Max examines the burst pipe, recognition dawning in his eyes as he thinks about his own bike's systems. David moves through the basics of fluid dynamics with the efficiency of someone who's taught under pressure. He explains flow rates, pressure differentials, system integrity, complex concepts broken down into digestible pieces. Lisa observes from her office, noting how some Scorpions lean forward, genuinely engaged, while others fidget, struggling with the academic approach. She recognizes the pattern from David's days training young airmen. Not everyone is ready for change. Theory is important, David acknowledges after an hour. But let's put it into practice. He moves to a workstation where a motorcycle's brake system lies stripped bare. This is what happens when theory is ignored. The system bears the scars of amateur modifications, stressed connections, improper pressure regulation, metal fatigue at critical points. Rico steps forward, pointing to a particular connection. Like what we saw at Norfolk, Hydraulics Shop '09. David nods, a shared memory passing between them. Different vehicle, same principle. Pressure is pressure, whether it's landing gear or brake lines. The morning progresses as David demonstrates proper maintenance techniques, emphasizing the importance of understanding system dynamics. Each Scorpion takes turns practicing on test setups, their initial bravado giving way to focused concentration. Max struggles with a particular pressure valve, frustration evident in his tense shoulders. David approaches, adjusts Max's grip, guides his hands to the proper angle. "You're fighting the system," David observes. "Work with it instead. Remember what I said about forces and pressure? The adjustment works immediately." Max examines the properly regulated valve, newfound respect in his eyes. "Different than custom choppers in a garage," David confirms. "This is proper systems engineering. The difference between looking tough and being reliable." A truck arrives carrying damaged motorcycles from an accident 2 towns over. Word has spread about the workshop's expertise. The students approach the wreckage with professional interest, already beginning to diagnose system failures. "This is what happens without proper understanding." David indicates twisted brake lines and ruptured fluid systems. These riders were lucky, others might not be. The lesson hits home. Many students recognize their own bikes could have similar vulnerabilities. The rush for inspection equipment shows how far they've come since last night's confrontation. Rico meets with David and Lisa as lunch break approaches. Other clubs are asking about the program, the transformation already spreading beyond Pine Valley. "We'll need instructors," Rico notes. "People who understand both worlds." David watches Max and Emily lead a basic pressure testing session, their natural leadership now channeled into education. "We're already training them." A commotion outside draws attention. Through the workshop windows, they spot Jimmy, Switchblade Carter, and 3 other Scorpions who hadn't shown up for training. They're watching from their bikes, their posture hostile. "Not everyone embraces change," Rico observes, recognizing the brewing dissent. David recognizes the potential threat. He's seen it before in military training. Some men fear change more than danger. The afternoon session focuses on practical applications as David guides them through basic system repairs, emphasizing safety protocols and proper documentation. In the Air Force, he explains while demonstrating a complex pressure regulation sequence, "We logged every maintenance action. Someone's life might depend on knowing when and how a repair was made." "We ain't in the Air Force," Switchblade's voice cuts through the lesson as he enters uninvited. "This whole setup, it's not our style." David sets down his pressure gauge, faces the dissenter. "Your style nearly got your president killed. That brake line would have failed at highway speed. Style doesn't mean much in a crash." The tension rises. Other Scorpions watch the exchange, allegiances visibly shifting. Max steps between them, his voice firm. "He's right, Jimmy. We've been lucky, not smart. That changes now." Switchblade spits, heads for his bike. 3 others follow, the sound of their departing motorcycles echoing through the workshop. "They'll be back," Rico predicts quietly, "when they see what we're building here." David returns to the demonstration, but his mind catalogs the potential threat. Experience has taught him that resistance to change can turn dangerous. The remaining Scorpions throw themselves into the work with renewed focus. By day's end, basic system knowledge is improving, understanding growing. David examines their progress, noting individual strengths and weaknesses. "Tomorrow," he announces as they pack up, "we start on advanced hydraulic systems. Real repairs, real consequences." The groans are good-natured now, tinged with genuine commitment. Even Max stays behind, asking detailed questions about pressure calculations. As the last bike rumbles away, Emily helps clean up the workshop, her earlier fear of the Scorpions replaced by professional respect. "Think they'll stick with it?" she asks, examining a practice setup left by one of the younger members. The pressure regulation shows promise, despite its rough execution. David begins preparing materials for tomorrow's lesson. Some will, some won't. Change is always hardest at the beginning. Dawn breaks over Pine Valley to reveal fresh graffiti across the workshop's main door. Crude skulls and threatening messages, the paint barely dried, marking Switchblade's first act of retaliation. David studies the vandalism with the calculated assessment of someone who's handled aircraft emergencies at 35,000 feet. Inside, Lisa photographs the damage while Deputy Wilson takes notes. The police presence isn't just procedural. Wilson recognizes the potential for escalation. 4 bikes at the Red Line Diner around midnight, Wilson reports, reviewing security footage on her tablet. Switchblade's group is trying to make a statement. They hit the diner too, Max announces as he arrives, his jaw tight with anger. Not just graffiti, sugar in the cooling systems of 3 customer air conditioning units. David's hands pause over his tools. Sabotaged cooling systems. His mind already calculates the repair procedures needed, the teaching opportunity hidden within the destruction. Today's lesson changes, he announces as the Scorpions gather. Practical exercise in emergency repairs. Emily grabbed the refrigerant diagnostic kit and pressure meters. The workshop transforms into a mobile repair unit. David divides the Scorpions into teams, assigning roles based on the skills they've shown. Max and Rico lead one group, their understanding of mechanical systems proving valuable. Sugar in cooling systems is amateur sabotage, David explains while they work. Real damage comes from pressure imbalances when refrigerant mixes with contaminants. Understanding the chemistry helps us prevent system failure. The Scorpions absorb the lesson, their hands learning the careful work of HVAC maintenance. Each step reinforces yesterday's teachings about pressure dynamics and system integrity. Lisa coordinates with local businesses, her phone constantly active. More reports of vandalism surface, all targeted at places that might support David's training program. A truck arrives carrying the first damaged unit from the diner. The owner, Mrs. Chen, watches anxiously as David inspects her restaurant's cooling system. "Don't worry about the cost," she starts, but David raises a hand. "No charge, Mrs. Chen. Consider this a practical exam for my students." The Scorpions exchange glances, understanding the responsibility being placed on them. Max steps forward, addressing Mrs. Chen directly. "We'll fix it right," he promises, "and we'll make sure it doesn't happen again." The morning progresses with focused intensity. David moves between teams, correcting techniques, explaining processes. Each repair becomes a lesson in both mechanics and accountability. Rico works alongside Emily, their age difference forgotten in shared purpose. The young apprentice's theoretical knowledge combines with the former Navy man's practical experience, creating unexpected synergy. In the service, Rico explains while demonstrating a particular technique, we learned that maintenance saves lives. Same principle here, just different stakes. By noon, 3 cooling systems are repaired. Word spreads through Pine Valley about the Scorpions' redemptive work. Community members bring coffee, sandwiches, words of encouragement. Deputy Wilson returns with fresh intelligence. Switchblade's gathering support from other clubs, she reports, making noise about selling out and losing respect. David absorbs this information while supervising a particularly tricky repair. "Respect earned through fear isn't respect," he responds. "It's just delayed rebellion." A motorcycle's distinctive rumble approaches, different from the Scorpions' bikes. A lone rider parks outside, his colors marking him from the Iron Eagles, a larger club out of Denver. The Scorpions tense, recognizing potential trouble. The rider dismounts, removes his helmet. His weathered face and gray beard speak of decades on the road. He surveys the scene, taking in former outlaws performing community service, learning trades. "Interesting operation," he comments, approaching David. "Word spreading about what you're building here." David wipes his hands, evaluates the visitor. "And you are?" "They call me Ghost, Western Coalition of Clubs." He gestures at the Scorpions. "Switchblade's been making noise, trying to rally support against this transformation. Thing is, we've been watching, seeing real change happen. My question is, got room for more students?" The tension breaks. Ghost's endorsement carries weight, not just permission but active support for David's program. "Always room for those willing to learn," David responds. But my standards don't change. Ghost nods, understanding. Good, because there's more than just cooling systems that need fixing in this region. If you're teaching real skills, real change, he leaves the implication hanging. The afternoon brings more damaged units, more opportunities for practical education. David introduces advanced diagnostic techniques, emphasizing the connection between understanding and repair. Sarah updates the training documentation, adding new certification paths based on the day's experiences. What started as basic systems instruction expands into a comprehensive mechanical engineering program. Late afternoon, Tommy spots Switchblade's group watching from a distance, their bikes idle menacingly. But they don't approach. The presence of Ghost's coalition colors keeps them at bay for now. They're running out of options, Rico observes. Can't fight progress forever. David watches his students work, seeing military precision slowly replace outlaw chaos. Each repaired system, each mastered technique builds something stronger than intimidation. As the sun sets, Mrs. Chen returns for her repaired unit. The Scorpions present their work proudly, explaining the repairs in detail. Her thanks brings unexpected dignity to men accustomed to inspiring fear. Ghost prepares to leave, having observed the entire operation. You're building something important here, Mitchell. The old guard might resist, but the future's clear. David surveys his expanded class, original Scorpions, coalition prospects, even a few community members drawn by the day's events. The future is what we engineer it to be, one repair at a time. Morning fog clings to Pine Valley's streets as David examines the latest damage to his workshop: 3 shattered windows, a sabotaged pressure system on Emily's Toyota, and crude threats spray-painted across the newly cleaned walls. Switchblade's escalation grows bolder, more dangerous. Rico arrives first, his military training evident in how he immediately secures the perimeter. His phone buzzes with messages from other reformed Scorpions, their new unofficial, name spreading through the motorcycle community. They hit 6 other spots last night, Rico reports, showing David the photos. The diner again, hardware store, even the community center. They're trying to isolate us. David sorts through his diagnostic equipment with methodical precision, each movement calculated. Isolation is only effective if you let it be, he responds. Today's lesson focuses on hydronic heating systems, starting with pressure regulation and heat exchange. The symbolism isn't lost on Rico, teaching about controlling pressure while under it. The remaining Scorpions arrive in groups, their formation tighter, more protective. Ghost's endorsement has brought 7 new prospects, their bikes showing varying degrees of mechanical neglect. Max supervises their arrival, his leadership evolving from intimidation to organization. Before we start, David announces to the assembled group, check your bikes thoroughly. Switchblade's crew is escalating from vandalism to sabotage. The inspection reveals 3 compromised brake lines and 2 damaged cooling systems. David watches his students apply their learning, identifying sabotage with growing expertise. Lisa emerges from the office with Deputy Wilson. The police officer's expression is grim. Got reports of Switchblade meeting with members of the Blood Riders from Wyoming, Wilson reports. They're known for more than just vandalism. Her implication is clear, this could turn far more serious. David absorbs this information while guiding a prospect through proper pressure testing. Desperation makes people predictable. They're following a pattern I saw in the service, escalating threats to maintain control when they're losing it. He's seen it before, during his deployments. The most dangerous moment is when the old guard realizes change is inevitable. The day's lesson begins with hydronic system diagnostics. David demonstrates proper pressure testing, flow dynamics, and the critical nature of balanced systems. Each student practices their movements, becoming more assured. Engineering isn't just about building, David explains, highlighting a particularly well-executed repair. It's about understanding systems, predicting failure points, preventing catastrophes. Emily works alongside a former Scorpion named Jack, their age similarity bridging the gap between civilian and outlaw cultures. They're installing new pressure regulators, sharing knowledge about tool selection and material properties. A motorcycle's distinctive rumble approaches, different from their known allies. Max and Rico move to defensive positions, learned from David's training. A single rider appears wearing Blood Rider's colors. The messenger dismounts, delivers his message with practiced menace. Switchblade sends terms: stop this reformation nonsense, return to traditional club activities, or face consequences. You have until midnight. Max steps forward, but David raises a hand, studying the messenger's bike with professional interest. Your heating system's showing signs of cavitation, he observes. Common problem with that model year, especially with amateur modifications. The pressure imbalance will destroy your engine within 100 miles. Confusion crosses the messenger's face. Message delivery shouldn't involve mechanical diagnosis. David is already moving to the bike's engine, pointing out obvious flaws. See here, impeller damage from improper pressure regulation, and here, heat exchange failure from restricted flow. Engineering doesn't care about club politics. Thermodynamics is undefeated. Other students gather around, recognizing the teaching opportunity. The messenger finds himself receiving an impromptu lesson in hydraulic system maintenance, his mission temporarily forgotten. Lisa watches from the office, documenting the interaction. She recognizes David's strategy, converting enemies through competence rather than confrontation. By mid-afternoon, the messenger's bike has proper cooling, and he's learned more about mechanical systems than in years of riding. He departs with confusion evident in his body language. He'll talk, Rico predicts. Word will spread about what's really happening here. David returns to teaching, guiding his students through increasingly complex repairs. The reformed Scorpions work with growing confidence, their outlaw patches now mixed with grease stains and tool marks. Ghost returns with news from other clubs. More riders are interested in the program, seeing the value of real engineering knowledge over intimidation tactics. Switchblade's losing support, Ghost reports, but that makes him more dangerous. Cornered dogs bite hardest. Evening approaches, bringing reports of Switchblade's crew gathering at a bar on the outskirts of town. Deputy Wilson increases patrols, recognizing the likelihood of confrontation. David calls his students together as darkness falls. Tonight might bring trouble. Remember your training, not just the mechanics, but the principles. We're building something here that's stronger than violence. Max organizes security rotations, positioning riders to protect key locations. Their tactical deployment shows both their outlaw experience and their new discipline. Midnight, Max muses, checking his watch. Think they'll actually make a move? David begins securing the workshop, each tool returned to its proper place. They'll try, but they're forgetting something important. What's that? Emily asks, helping with cleanup. In engineering, every action has a calculated reaction. We've been calculating since day one. The workshop's security lights illuminate the growing fog, creating shadows that move like memories of high-altitude missions. David watches his students prepare for potential conflict, seeing not outlaws or reformers, but engineers in training. The workshop's clock ticks toward midnight, each second measured in the steady hum of idling motorcycles. David moves through final equipment checks, his students positioned strategically around the property. Their formation reflects both their outlaw experience and their new technical precision. Rico's voice crackles over the radio. Movement on the East Road, multiple bikes running dark. Through the security cameras, David watches Switchblade's approach. 20 bikes plus reinforcements from the Blood Riders. Their attempt at stealth betrayed by poorly maintained exhaust systems, a diagnosis his students can now make from sound alone. Remember, David broadcasts to his defenders, we're technicians first. Everything that happens next should prove that. The attackers kill their engines 2 blocks away, rolling in silently, but David's preparations extend beyond the visible. Pressure sensors salvaged from aircraft maintenance systems and repurposed by his students track every approach. Counting 25 hostiles, Max's voice remains steady on the radio. They're splitting into 3 teams. Lisa activates additional security measures, not weapons but systems designed to defend through technical superiority. High-intensity lights, calibrated pressure systems, and carefully positioned hydraulic obstacles created during practical engineering exercises. Switchblade's voice carries through the fog. Last chance, Mitchell. Stop corrupting our brothers with this engineering nonsense. David steps into view, his stance relaxed but alert. Interesting choice of words. Corruption implies decay. What we're doing here is the opposite. We're building, strengthening, improving. The first wave of attackers moves forward, chains and crude weapons visible, but David's students have prepared for this moment, applying their new knowledge in unexpected ways. Emily activates the first defense, a network of high-pressure sprinklers carefully calibrated to affect visibility and traction. Several of the attackers' bikes slip on the suddenly wet surface, their amateur suspension modifications unable to compensate. Basic fluid dynamics, David calls out to the confused attackers. Your modified suspension systems are especially vulnerable to rapid changes in surface conditions. We covered that in Tuesday's lesson. Switchblade signals for a direct assault, but as his men charge forward, they encounter another engineering solution. The ground around the workshop, apparently solid, shifts unexpectedly. A carefully designed system of pressure-activated plates and hydraulic lifts. Load distribution and mechanical advantage, Max explains to his former associates, pride evident in his voice. Simple physics, properly applied. The reformed Scorpions hold their positions, watching their preparations prove effective. Each defense demonstrates their growing mastery of mechanical principles. Rico coordinates the response from his position, military experience blending with new technical knowledge. They're bunching up near the hydronic testing zone, he reports. David allows himself a small smile. That area had been the focus of yesterday's practical exercise in pressure systems. At his signal, Emily engages the modified heating systems. Carefully controlled bursts of steam create a defensive barrier, transforming repair equipment into protection. Switchblade's frustration builds as his attack falters against technical innovation. This isn't how bikers fight. You're right, David responds. This is how engineers solve problems. Notice how your bikes are overheating? That's because your cooling systems are compromised by poor modification choices. We can fix that for you. The offer of technical assistance rather than violence catches several attackers off guard. Some lower their weapons, engineering curiosity overcoming outlaw loyalty. Sarah's voice comes through David's earpiece. Police response intentionally delayed. Deputy Wilson's giving us time to resolve this our way. The confrontation reaches its pivot point as one of Switchblade's key lieutenants steps forward, examining a disabled bike. They're actually brilliant. The precision in these countermeasures. David approaches the lieutenant, talking about pressure regulation and proper system maintenance as if they're in a normal lesson. Other attackers gather around, professional interest overtaking aggressive intent. Switchblade watches his attack dissolve into an impromptu engineering seminar, his remaining loyal followers shifting uncertainly between violence and fascination. This is what defeat looks like, Switchblade snarls, revving his engine. No, David corrects him. This is what evolution looks like. Your bike's making sounds that indicate serious cooling system issues. Could be catastrophic at high speeds. Ghost emerges from the shadows, other coalition leaders with him. They've witnessed the entire encounter, violence prevented through superior engineering and education. The old ways are changing, Ghost announces. Clubs need to adapt or fade away. Switchblade guns his engine in defiance, but the sound confirms David's diagnosis. Metal groans in ways that make every trained ear wince. That cooling system has maybe 5 minutes left, David estimates. Unless you'd like us to take a look at it. Teaching opportunity for the night class. The tension breaks as several of Switchblade's own men laugh. They've seen enough to recognize real power, not in violence or intimidation, but in knowledge and skill. One by one, bikes are wheeled into the workshop's light. Former attackers become impromptu students asking questions about their machines. David's original students lead the discussions, demonstrating their growing expertise. Switchblade watches his authority dissolve, replaced by something he doesn't understand. His bike's cooling system makes one final protest before seizing completely. Might want to let us help with that, Max suggests to his former rival. unless you're planning to push it home. Dawn approaches as David surveys the scene. His workshop has become an overnight teaching center, former enemies working alongside his students to repair and improve their machines. The morning light reveals bikes lined up for inspection, their owners now eagerly learning about proper system maintenance. "Think this is really the end of it?" Emily asks, helping diagnose a particularly troublesome cooling system. David watches Switchblade reluctantly accepting help from Max and Rico, his earlier hostility replaced by grudging attention to their technical instruction. "End of one chapter, beginning of something better," David responds. The night's event spread through the motorcycle community like a technical revolution. The reformed Scorpion's reputation grows not through fear, but through expertise and innovation. Lisa updates the class roster, adding names from 3 different clubs. The waiting list grows as word spreads about the garage that defends itself with engineering instead of violence. David begins preparing for the morning's regular class, knowing it will have many new faces. In the Air Force, he learned that lasting change comes not from defeating enemies, but from transforming them into allies. He arranges his diagnostic equipment with practiced precision, each tool ready for the day's lessons. "Major manufacturers are taking notice," Ghost announces, reviewing messages on his phone. "Word's getting out about what you're doing here. They're interested in your training methods." The implications are clear. What started as conflict resolution could become something much larger. The morning's first lesson focuses on advanced cooling systems. David guides his expanded class through the intricacies of heat exchange and pressure regulation. Switchblade, now stripped of his leadership, but not his mechanical aptitude, shows surprising insight into system dynamics. "See how the pressure differential affects heat distribution," David demonstrates on a cutaway model. This is why proper calibration matters more than raw power. Engineering isn't about domination, it's about optimization. His students, former rivals now united in learning, absorb the lesson with growing understanding. Deputy Wilson arrives with unexpected news. "County Commissioner wants to meet with you," she tells David during a break. "They're interested in establishing a formal technical training program. Your success rate with rehabilitation through education has caught their attention." Lisa coordinates with local businesses, scheduling repairs that will serve as practical exercises for the expanding student body. The community's response has been overwhelming. What started as a conflict has evolved into a vital service center. "We're getting calls from 3 counties over," she reports. "People asking if we can check their heating and cooling systems. Word spread about our quality standards." David watches his students work, seeing the pride in their faces as they master each new skill. Rico leads an advanced class in hydraulic system diagnosis, his military background perfectly suited for teaching precision and attention to detail. "In the Navy, we learned that small errors compound into major failures," he explains to his attentive audience. Same principle applies here. Every connection, every calibration matters. Emily works with younger students, her natural teaching ability shining through. "Pressure isn't just about force," she explains, echoing David's lessons. "It's about understanding flow, resistance, and balance. Once you understand the principles, the applications are endless." The afternoon brings corporate representatives from major motorcycle manufacturers. They observe the training sessions with obvious interest. "Your graduates understand both the theory and practical application," one executive notes. "That's rare and valuable." Ghost meets with David as the day progresses, bringing news from other clubs. "This is spreading beyond Pine Valley," he says. Other chapters are asking about starting similar programs. The old guard is losing ground to technical expertise. Switchblade, working on his repaired cooling system, overhears the conversation. "Never thought I'd say this," he admits grudgingly. "But there's power in understanding how things actually work. Different kind of respect than what we had before." David watches his expanded facility operate with growing efficiency. Each station demonstrates the transformation from conflict to cooperation. Max guides new students through basic diagnostics, his leadership now focused on building rather than intimidating. "We're going to need more space," Lisa observes, reviewing the growing application list, "and more structured certification programs." The demands of success bring new challenges, but they're the kind of challenges David welcomes. Problems solved through planning and expertise rather than force. As evening approaches, the workshop buzzes with activity. Students from different clubs work together, sharing knowledge and experience. The sound of tools and technical discussion has replaced the rumble of threatening motorcycles. "You've started something bigger than just fixing bikes," Ghost tells David, watching the scene. "This is about showing there's another way. Strength through knowledge instead of fear." David nods, remembering similar transformations he witnessed in the Air Force, how proper training could turn even the most resistant individuals into dedicated professionals. The day's final class focuses on preventive maintenance. David demonstrates how understanding systems can prevent failures before they occur. It's a lesson that extends beyond mechanics, speaking to the heart of their transformation. "Everything we build," he tells his students, "every system we maintain, carries our signature. Make sure that signature stands for excellence." The workshop that once faced destruction now creates future innovation. The sound of learning fills every corner. Questions asked and answered, problems solved through understanding, lives transformed through knowledge. In Pine Valley, Colorado, what began as a confrontation becomes a revolution in technical education and community transformation. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but tonight, in a workshop filled with former enemies turned students, the future takes shape through the power of expertise freely shared. 6 months after that fateful night, David stands in his expanded facility, surveying what his workshop has become. What started as a single-bay operation has grown into a comprehensive technical training center, with 3 dedicated buildings spanning the renovated industrial lot. "Final numbers are in," Lisa announces, joining him with a tablet displaying comprehensive data. 200 graduates, 98% employment rate, and 0 system failures from certified repairs. The state board wants to use our curriculum as a standard. She hands him the latest certification requests, applications from clubs as far as Montana and New Mexico. Ghost arrives for the day's certification ceremony, his presence marking how far they've come. "Last holdout chapters signed the agreement this morning," he reports with satisfaction. Technical certification is now standard across all major clubs in the Western region. Max leads the morning diagnostic training, his teaching style refined by months of experience. Former rivals work together seamlessly, their shared pursuit of excellence erasing old boundaries. "Watch the pressure readings," he instructs a multinational group. "Every system tells a story if you know how to read it." Rico coordinates with military transition programs from 3 branches of service. Their training model has become standard curriculum for veterans entering civilian technical trades. "Same principles apply everywhere," he explains during a demonstration, seeing the pride in their faces as they master each new skill. Rico leads an advanced class in hydraulic system diagnosis, his military background perfectly suited for teaching precision and attention to detail. "In the Navy, we learned that small errors compound into major failures," he explains to his attentive audience. "Same principle applies here. Every connection, every calibration matters." Emily works with younger students, her natural teaching ability shining through. "Pressure isn't just about force," she explains, echoing David's lessons. "It's about understanding flow, resistance, and balance. Once you understand the principles, the applications are endless." The afternoon brings corporate representatives from major motorcycle manufacturers. They observe the training sessions with obvious interest. "Your graduates understand both the theory and practical application," one executive notes. "That's rare and valuable." Ghost meets with David as the day progresses, bringing news from other clubs. "This is spreading beyond Pine Valley," he says. Other chapters are asking about starting similar programs. The old guard is losing ground to technical expertise. Switchblade, working on his repaired cooling system, overhears the conversation. "Never thought I'd say this," he admits grudgingly, "but there's power in understanding how things actually work. Different kind of respect than what we had before." David watches his expanded facility operate with growing efficiency. Each station demonstrates the transformation from conflict to cooperation. Max guides new students through basic diagnostics, his leadership now focused on building rather than intimidating. "We're going to need more space," Lisa observes, reviewing the growing application list, and more structured certification programs. The demands of success bring new challenges, but they're the kind of challenges David welcomes. Problems solved through planning and expertise rather than force. As evening approaches, the workshop buzzes with activity. Students from different clubs work together, sharing knowledge and experience. The sound of tools and technical discussion has replaced the rumble of threatening motorcycles. "You've started something bigger than just fixing bikes," Ghost tells David, watching the scene. "This is about showing there's another way. Strength through knowledge instead of fear." David nods, remembering similar transformations he witnessed in the Air Force, how proper training could turn even the most resistant individuals into dedicated professionals. The day's final class focuses on preventive maintenance. David demonstrates how understanding systems can prevent failures before they occur. It's a lesson that extends beyond mechanics, speaking to the heart of their transformation. "Everything we build," he tells his students, "every system we maintain, carries our signature. Make sure that signature stands for excellence." The workshop that once faced destruction now creates future innovation. The sound of learning fills every corner. Questions asked and answered, problems solved through understanding, lives transformed through knowledge. In Pine Valley, Colorado, what began as a confrontation becomes a revolution in technical education and community transformation. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but tonight, in a workshop filled with former enemies turned students, the future takes shape through the power of expertise freely shared. 6 months after that fateful night, David stands in his expanded facility, surveying what his workshop has become. What started as a single-bay operation has grown into a comprehensive technical training center, with 3 dedicated buildings spanning the renovated industrial lot. "Final numbers are in," Lisa announces, joining him with a tablet displaying comprehensive data. 200 graduates, 98% employment rate, and 0 system failures from certified repairs. "The state board wants to use our curriculum as a standard." She hands him the latest certification requests, applications from clubs as far as Montana and New Mexico. Ghost arrives for the day's certification ceremony, his presence marking how far they've come. "Last holdout chapters signed the agreement this morning," he reports with satisfaction. Technical certification is now standard across all major clubs in the Western region. Max leads the morning diagnostic training, his teaching style refined by months of experience. Former rivals work together seamlessly, their shared pursuit of excellence erasing old boundaries. "Watch the pressure readings," he instructs a multinational group. "Every system tells a story if you know how to read it." Rico coordinates with military transition programs from 3 branches of service. Their training model has become standard curriculum for veterans entering civilian technical trades. "Same principles apply everywhere," he explains during a demonstration. "Whether it's aircraft systems or building infrastructure, excellence saves lives." Emily, now a full instructor, manages the youth program that's expanded beyond everyone's expectations. Her original apprenticeship has spawned a technical education initiative that's changing lives. "See how the theoretical models match real-world performance." She guides students through simulation data. That's engineering perfection. Switchblade, transformed from opponent to technical specialist, prepares for today's certification ceremonies. His journey from resistance to expertise embodies their core mission. "A year ago, I thought power came from fear," he addresses gathered students. "Now I understand real power comes from knowledge shared." The morning brings industry leaders for the unveiling of their landmark achievement, Project Phoenix, a comprehensive training program that revolutionizes technical education without sacrificing practical application. David guides observers through innovative teaching stations, where every component represents collaboration between street experience and engineering precision. Lisa manages media coverage as their story reaches national audiences. Their message of transformation through technical excellence resonates across industries. "What started as conflict resolution," she tells reporters, "evolved into a revolution in how we approach both technical education and community rehabilitation." Ghost organizes demonstrations showcasing their comprehensive impact. Graduate teams display innovations that merge traditional methods with cutting-edge technology. Old school experience, new school engineering, he presents to observers. Preserving culture while advancing technology. That's true evolution. The afternoon ceremony draws participants from every chapter of their story. Former antagonists stand together, united by shared commitment to excellence. David addresses the gathering, his words carrying the weight of their journey. Technical expertise isn't just about machines. It's about transforming how we solve problems, how we build community, how we create future opportunities. Lisa coordinates with national partners as similar facilities prepare to open across the country. Their model spreads, adapting to local needs while maintaining core standards. Excellence knows no boundaries, she tells new program directors. Understanding transcends old divisions. Ghost reflects on their journey with new students, sharing wisdom earned through transformation. Power through fear destroys, he teaches. Power through knowledge builds. That's the choice we made, the future we chose to create. The expanded facility operates at peak efficiency, every station demonstrating precision born from practice. Students master skills that change lives through understanding. Max guides advanced testing on safety innovations, each breakthrough protecting future generations. Engineering saves lives, he shows through accident prevention data. Understanding prevents tragedy. Emily's youth program presents unified research advancing technical education. Their collaboration proves excellence transcends generations. See how different approaches complement each other, she demonstrates through integrated projects. That's the power of shared knowledge. Switchblade leads certification ceremonies, his presence testament to the possibility of change. Each graduate represents potential for transformation. Your certificates mean more than technical skill, he tells new technicians. They represent commitment to excellence that builds community. David watches proceedings with quiet pride. The workshop that faced destruction now creates future innovation across the region. Lisa updates their legacy documentation, recording the journey from conflict to revolution. Final metrics exceed all projections, she notes in official records. But numbers can't measure the human impact of lives transformed. The day concludes with a national broadcast connecting partner facilities. Their network spans states, united by shared commitment to excellence. Ghost summarizes their achievement for historical record. We didn't just change technical training. We proved understanding can transform any conflict into cooperation. David prepares for tomorrow's challenges, knowing their work continues evolving. The facility hums with purpose, each station advancing their mission. The sound of learning fills every space. Questions asked and answered, problems solved through understanding, lives transformed through knowledge. In Pine Valley, Colorado, what began as confrontation became a revolution in technical education and community transformation. Their message spreads. Excellence through understanding, strength through knowledge, transformation through expertise. The technical revolution continues, one student, one innovation, one life at a time. Their legacy proves that true power comes not from intimidation but from mastery freely shared. Tomorrow brings new challenges, new opportunities for growth, but their foundation remains solid, built on understanding that transcends boundaries, changes lives, and transforms conflict into cooperation through the universal language of technical excellence. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.